Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition here on the Rock Pile. Tonight, the Rock Pile brings you episode number 2 of the Glory Days podcast. I'll be bringing my sister on in just a minute as we bring you tonight episode number 2 of the podcast. Tonight, we got two special guests. They've been frequent guests with me on the radio and also on this show here on the Rock Pile. We'll talk to Will Brown, the longtime former men's basketball coach at the University of Albany, where he spent over 20 years as the head coach. This past year, he spent a year as the head women's coach at St. Rose and took St. Rose to the NCAA tournament. And many, if you follow basketball, the University of St. Rose shut down at the end of this year, so coach through some tough times. But we're going to talk to him about some of the differences, right, with the men and women's games and the impact that Caitlin Clark has had on all sports. And then right about 8:40, we'll have local Notre Dame alum, current assistant coach at the University of Illinois, the lady fighting the Illini, Emily Durr, is going to join us at about 8:40. Emily's team this year coached against Caitlin Clark. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about just the impact that she's had, Caitlin Clark, on all of sports and much more. If you're following on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. That'll help us with more content. If you're watching on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, if you have any questions for us tonight, you want to put any comments in, just put your comments in the box, and I'll try to bring as many questions over as I can. So without further ado, let's bring on my sister. Shan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rock. I'm glad to be back on for our second podcast.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I'm sure with a couple interviews that, the less time you talked, the better. Everybody said you carried the show the last time.
Well, some things will never change.
But two good guests. I don't know if you know much about Coach Brown. He's been a staple on the radio show with me for about 8 years. Spent over 20 years as the head men's basketball coach at Albany, and then this past year coached in some challenging times because midway through their season at St. Rose, they found out the university was going to close. So he had to coach through that and did a fantastic job. And then I'm sure you know Emily Durr.
Oh, yeah.
The Notre Dame alum. We'll talk to her at about 8:40. Emily's always good to jump on with us. So
I'm excited. I was going to say I'm excited to talk to Emily too because when Emily actually played for Notre Dame, I did the shot clock at Camden, and I always tried to make sure that when Camden played Notre Dame, I was on shot clock just so I can watch her play.
Yeah, she was fun. She
Yes.
is. I think to this day, she's the second all-time leading scorer in the area, and I think the number one is Brianna Stewart, who played.
I want to say you're probably about right with that.
She was fun. She's really good to talk to. Worked her way up in the coaching field, and I'm excited to just talk to her about what it was like to coach against Caitlin Clark
Yep.
in Iowa. But Shannon, we got a few minutes before Coach Brown jumps on, and obviously tonight's focus is just going to be. I feel like we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the impact that Caitlin Clark's had on all of women's sports. But in your eyes, when you turn on sports now, you see a lot of women broadcasters. You see that women's sports in general, it seems like they're getting more publicity, which I think is well-deserving. What's your take? Because you were a female athlete in college, right? To see where the game is today just in general compared to when you were in school.
Oh my God. I was just thinking about this as I was driving home. We just had our first skills and drills at Camden tonight with our girls in grades 7 through 12. And I was kind of just thinking, back when I was at Central Michigan, obviously Mid-American Conference, if it's really changed that much. And I can tell you it 100% has changed so much. Even like to go back to Central Michigan, when I played, we had our grass field. Actually, we had 2 grass fields, but we played our games on the football stadium. We didn't have our own field. And now they have their very own turf field, their own field hockey complex named after Christy Freeze. And I even look at that aspect of it that, now they have their own complex, their own field. I think female sports is definitely getting better, but we still have a ways to go.
Shannon, I feel like some of the sports back in high school when we played, like I look now and I say like lacrosse has gotten so much bigger.
Yep.
Soccer, I know you've lived it, with Michaela, just how much bigger the game of soccer has gotten over the years. And I think we're seeing more of it at the high school level with some of the sports that maybe weren't so big years ago, but now they're so much bigger now than what they were when we played.
Absolutely. I mean, even look at the basketball aspect of it. I know last week or the week before that we did our podcast, we were talking about, the different youth things that are out there now. But I mean, even the aspect of, the AAU basketball, there's so much more, I feel like, exposure for our female athletes. And I feel like you're seeing more female athletes making that jump from being a high school athlete to being a college athlete, whether it be, D1, 2, 3, a community college, whatever. I definitely see it growing. Like I said, back when I was at Central Michigan, which was 1995 to 2000, but I played until 1999. Times have changed, and locally around here, even look at, like you had mentioned, girls lacrosse. I mean, that's really, really, really growing. So it's kind of neat to see that.
And I also feel like even now, like with the Olympics coming up, you look at like the women's gymnastics, you look at women's soccer, you look at women's basketball, and you look at all these sports now that, the United States is the gold medal favorite,
Yep.
in a lot of these events, right? And I find myself now, and we'll get into it with Coach Brown, but I feel like nowadays, since Caitlin Clark, arrival to the college scene the last couple of years, she's selling out arenas. I mean, arenas now in the WNBA are having to move from playing in a small $6,000-7,000 arena to play in front of 20,000 because she's putting so many people in the seats.
Yep.
But I feel like even now, like I catch myself tuning in to watch more and more, not just Caitlin Clark, a lot more like WNBA, the women's gymnastics, the women's soccer. I just feel like there's a lot of key names now. And I think us fans like to follow names. And I just think like she's one of many names in the sports world for females that people want to follow.
Right. I definitely think you're hearing a lot more female names pop up. Before it was a lot of the male names, and now, the tables are kind of turning, and I think a lot of female athletes are making their mark on the sport, which is huge. And I think it's huge for, female athletes that are in youth sports to see people like Caitlin Clark and the impact she's making on male and female sports and fans. I mean, I was looking at March Madness, and I saw that the female side of it, their turnout for the final game was bigger than the male turnout for the March Madness final. So, I mean, that doesn't ever happen.
So it's funny you bring that up. So the final game, which was Iowa and South Carolina, that won the national championship, Don Staley, the coach, that has done a phenomenal job there. The championship game averaged, I'm going to read this verbatim, 18.7 million viewers.
Yeah.
It peaked at 24 million, which was the men's game, which was UConn over Purdue, was 14 million. Yeah. Now, I'm going to be partial bias here and say UConn just destroyed everybody in the men's game from the first round until the national championship.
Yep.
So it's kind of a boring tournament because I think everybody thought the way UConn played that they were going to win it anyways. But again, people tuned in to watch Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
And I think some people wanted to see her fail.
Okay, I'm not going to lie, because we watched that game at Mom and Dad's house, if you remember. And I will fully admit, I always love watching March Madness for the guys. Like, I always watch that. But I remember I was really excited to watch Caitlin Clark play, because that's all I heard was Caitlin Clark. And then to watch her on the court, she definitely is a great player, but I agree. She has the people that are for her, and then she also has the group that, just doesn't like her, doesn't like what she stands for. But then you got to wonder, is it jealousy?
Shane, hold your thought, because there's coaches coming on now with, I'm sure he's going to have some key points. Coach, what's happening?
Not much. How we doing?
Well, I got to tell you, I got my better half, my sister's on, who's the winningest coach in the family. She played field hockey at Central Michigan, and she's one of the winningest coaches in the area for field hockey.
So I'm with the JV and the varsity now, huh?
Yes.
You are 100% right, Coach. I am nowhere near my sister's class, but we appreciate you coming on.
No, thanks for having me. I'm glad you did it at a time that does not interfere with the Indiana Fever and the Las Vegas Aces tonight, you know?
So, Coach, let's start there because we were talking a little bit. I mean, most of this show tonight, I don't know if you know Coach Emily Durr. Emily played locally here at Notre Dame High School, had a great career here. I think she's the second leading scorer in New York State behind Brianna Stewart. She's an assistant at Illinois on the women's side, and they coach against Caitlin Clark. So I feel like tonight's show is a lot about her and the impact that Caitlin's had. But we were talking, Coach, and, you know, I said, and I'm guilty of this, I've always followed the WNBA, not as closely as I've followed it this year. And I think it's not just because of Caitlin Clark. I think it's because of the class that came out with her, you know, the Angel Reeses and, you know, obviously Caitlin Clark, Cameron Brink. But I find myself nights checking scores and checking the box score to see how some of these girls did. In the past, I would have never done that.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm the same way. I think my wife knows every time the Indiana Fever are playing. And honestly, this is a terrific rookie class with Caitlin Clark, Reese, and Brink. But I think the reality of the whole thing is people are watching because of Caitlin Clark. I mean, that's the bottom line. Did you see the ovation she got walking off the court the other night? Phoenix has 3 Olympians on their roster. Caitlin Clark finished her interview. She was escorted off the floor to a standing ovation on the road. Now, Las Vegas is moving their game tonight to T-Mobile Arena, which seats several thousand more. I mean, listen, for all the players out there that wanted more attention on the WNBA, you have it now. And don't hate the person that brought a lot of that attention. That's what's mind-boggling to me right now is she's handled this all with grace, in my opinion. She's tremendous in an interview. She's always paying respect to the veterans and the players that came before her. But the hate is unbelievable. That's the thing that bothers me the most. You have chartered flights because of Caitlin Clark. You're selling out arenas because of Caitlin Clark. Now, what's happening is I think fans are realizing how good the talent is in the WNBA because Caitlin is drawing eyeballs to the games and to the league. And now people are sitting back and being like, wow, this league's pretty good. There's some really good players in this league. And every team is walking into the game with one thing in mind, to make her look bad, to shut her down. I mean, they're guarding her 94 feet. They're shadowing her. They're denying her the ball. When was the last time a rookie drew that much attention?
Coach, we were talking before you jumped on. We were talking about just the impact, not even just basketball, right? I think she's impacted all of sports in general. Like, people want to see her play and see what she's going to do. But one of the stat lines we were talking about was that women's national championship game drew 18.7 million viewers. In the men's game, I mean, I think, listen, Connecticut steamrolled through the men's tournament, right? They don't think they played one close game the entire time, but the men's only averaged 14 million viewers. So the women, all eyes are on the women's.
Well, I was in MVP Arena all weekend, all Easter weekend, my wife and I, 4 days. And the atmosphere, the energy, the enthusiasm, the amount of young kids in there wearing Caitlin Clark jerseys, T-shirts. They sprint down the final minute. They're all sprinting down to where Iowa exits the court and lining up to get a picture or to get an autograph. I mean, honestly, I was just amazed. And in Albany, the talent level was unbelievable. You had South Carolina there. You had LSU there. It was awesome. But the only jersey and T-shirt you saw, everything had Clark on the back of it. I mean, honestly, I mean, with all the great players that were in the MVP arena that day, it was all about Caitlin Clark and then what the coach from LSU was wearing on the sideline. That was
Yep.
another topic of conversation. What was Kim Mulkey going
Yep.
to wear? You know, so I mean, I haven't seen anything like this. And the problem is she can't just go out there and play. I mean, I think there's so much pressure on her. I listened to, I don't know if you heard any of Diana Taurasi's post game comments. She said she loved her rookie year because she just went out there and played, but there was no social media. I mean, Diana Taurasi's 40 years old, and there was no social media. There wasn't that pressure. She could just go out and play. Right now, it's almost like everyone's living and dying with every pass and every shot. And let's face it, her team is not that good. I mean, she has to do. She's like top 5 in the league in assists. She should be number 1 in the league in assists. You know, the fact that they're winning games. She got them back in the game the other night. She was dominant in the third quarter. You know, and she's only going to get better. She's been going nonstop. I think after this game tonight, if I'm not mistaken, I think they have 20 days before their next game. I think she can probably use that as much as anyone, and she'll be even better coming off the break.
Coach, I was telling my sister you spent this past year coaching the women's game, and obviously spending all that time in the men's game. And you and I have talked about, you know, some of the differences and what were the challenges for you. How much, though, has the girls' game evolved? I mean, even before Caitlin Clark, I feel like the girls' game in general has gotten bigger and bigger. And then the star class that came out, I think it just took it to the next level. But how much has it evolved over the years?
You know, it really has. And for the people out there that just say basketball is basketball, they're naive. You know, the men's and the women's game, they're two different games. You know, I say it all the time, the men's game is an above the rim game, and the women's game is a below the rim game. But the talent level and some of the things they're doing on the court, right? I mean, we're talking about Caitlin Clark, so we might as well continue. I mean, she's shooting the ball from further back than Steph Curry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have a stat now of how many 30-footers Caitlin Clark has made. I think she's made like 8 of them, and then I think there's 2 other players in the league that each made 1. You know, and 5-6 years ago, or maybe as recent as last year, no one on the women's side would even think about taking a shot 1 dribble over half court. You know, I mean, she's got things she needs to work on, obviously, and I think she's smart enough to realize that. But the game has really, you know, evolved. Watch Asia Wilson tonight. She's awesome. I mean, I watched her at South Carolina and how her game has progressed. She's probably the most dominant player in the league right now. But, you know, I'm a basketball junkie. And I just think the games are different. You need to understand that, but there's tremendous skill and athleticism in the WNBA, and I always, as I like to say, it seems like they share the ball a little more. You know, I think the NBA has really become an isolation one-on-one game, and I think you have a couple of players in the WNBA that can operate that way, but it's more of a let's score off this action, you know, let's get a ball reversal and then set a ball screen. So, yeah, I mean, I think the game's just going to continue to evolve. Poor Cameron Brink tore her ACL. She was having a really good year. You know, Angel Reese, whether you like it or you don't, she's not even close to being on Caitlin Clark's level, in my opinion. But she does play really hard. She's like the WNBA's Dennis Rodman,
Yep.
Except she can make a layup once in a while, you know. So you have to appreciate how hard she plays. I just don't like why she wants so much attention, whereas I don't think Caitlin Clark wants the attention. Her game demands the attention, whereas I think Angel Reese is jealous and wants all that attention. But I respect her game. She's really good at what she does, So yeah, and the game's going to continue, to get better. I don't know if you've seen the young player at USC, Juju Watkins.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she could play in WNBA right now. She just finished her freshman year at USC. I mean, she's a tremendous offensive talent.
Coach, you know who I think? I was going back because I was a huge Tim Tebow guy when he was in college. I loved his game, just a hard-nosed player, played with intensity. Every coach's dream to have a kid like Tim Tebow. And I felt like a lot of people, I mean, take away the kneeling thing, but I feel like Tim Tebow, everybody wanted to see him fail in the NFL, and they said, well, he's not a quarterback. He'll never make it. He's to switch positions. And I feel like that's part of the Caitlin Clark thing. Like, she's answered every question. She's done it with class. I have an 8-year-old daughter who just started playing basketball. And I would say, if you want to grow up and be anybody, Madison, you grow up to be like Caitlin Clark. But you still have those haters. Is it because she's getting all the attention and all the money?
I think there's a variety of reasons. A couple of them I have no interest in diving into. You can probably figure some of those out. Listen, I think the easy thing in society nowadays is to drag people down.
Mm-hmm.
You look at someone who's worked so hard to get to a certain level, appreciate that greatness, and understand what it took to be that good. See, people don't want to work at that level. They want that success. They want that attention, but they don't want to put in the work. And I think the WNBA was good before Caitlin Clark got to the WNBA. I mean, a lot of talent in the league. But what Caitlin Clark's done is she's elevated. She's drawn attention. And she just broke the NCAA scoring record. She took Iowa, who has always been a solid program. She took Iowa to back-to-back national title games. So I think it's been a couple of years coming now. And honestly, I think a lot of the players in the WNBA who, I think they had animosity because I think they feel like they're being disrespected and not appreciated for their talents and what they did to help elevate the WNBA. But again, listen, if you were complaining about not having chartered flights and you were complaining about not getting enough TV games, and somebody can help make that happen, appreciate that and ride that wave. And that's why I really believe she should be on the Olympic team. The NBA is a global phenomenon. It's a global game. The WNBA has an opportunity right now to become a national and international game. If you don't want to play her, that's fine. But her game fits perfectly for international play. And in my opinion, I think there's only one point guard in the WNBA better than her right now, and that's Sabrina Ionescu from the New York Liberty. And I think that's because she's more mature. She's physical. She's more experienced. I think Caitlin will get to that level. But there's an opportunity now to continue to ride this wave and have all these sponsors attach themselves to the U.S. Women's Olympic team. And if Caitlin Clark was playing, I never thought I would ever say this before, and I'm hesitant to say it, but I'm going to. I think they would get more attention than the men's team.
Yeah, I would agree.
I really do. And the men's Olympics for basketball is going to be as good as it's ever been, especially when they get to like the final 8. The U.S. team is not a given. I think the U.S. team is a given on the women's side, but Caitlin would play regardless because they're going to be blowing teams out.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about not playing her. So I really think the WNBA and the Olympic Committee are missing an opportunity, and I still think somehow, some way, she will be on that. She'll be on that plane to Paris. Somebody's not going to be able to play, and they'll smarten up and they'll be like, "Hey, we need to add her to the roster."
Yeah, I would agree with you, Coach. I look back now and I say, like coming up next year, like I'm a Paige fan. I love Paige Beckers at UConn.
She's awesome.
she's going to be the star. And you mentioned Juju, so I feel like the women's game is in really good shape with these young stars still coming up. Do you think though the women's game this year though got the attention because of you mentioned like the Cam Brinks and the Caitlin Clarks and even the Cardoza girl from South Carolina, because of the class that came up that Caitlin came in with?
Yeah, I think it starts with Caitlin, and then you have to give credit to the rest of the class. Look at the men's side. Zach Edey was a 2-time National Player of the Year, but I guess he's boring because nobody was really talking about him unless he actually played on TV that night. Everyone was talking about Caitlin Clark, and then it became, you know what, Angel Reese is pretty good. How about Cameron Brink? Cardoza, best player on a national championship team at South Carolina. Look, you just said Paige Beckers, and Juju Watkins. I mean, Paige will be the number 1 pick in the WNBA draft next year. And what's the rule on the women's side? I think they have to stay 3 years before they can get drafted, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
Juju Watkins is going to be following Paige Beckers. So there's personalities and there's rookies that are going to transition to the WNBA and be really good from day one. It doesn't matter what Caitlin does the rest of the season. The expectations are unrealistic, and there's too many people rooting for her to fail because that's the easy thing to do. I don't know why we're not trying to uplift each other in society, especially somebody like Caitlin, who, in my opinion, has handled everything with grace. Does she complain to referees? Yeah, she does. Because I'll tell you what, she's used to getting every call in college, and now she's not getting any calls. So she's got a little Luka Doncic in her when she throws those arms out there asking for fouls. But, she plays really hard. Seems like she's a great teammate. And she doesn't need to score to beat you. I mean, she's as good as any passer in the WNBA. I just, again, I listened to her interviews. Look, my house. I mean, like I said, my wife can't wait till 9:30 tonight to watch her play. My wife would rather watch her play a regular season game than watch Game 5 of the Celtics and the Mavs. So, and there's a lot of people like that. I was my son's graduation party the other day. There were people talking about Caitlin Clark, and they were people that I never would have imagined that would be talking about the WNBA or women's basketball or Caitlin Clark. And so instead of joining those conversations, I just sat back and listened, and I smiled because I do think the WNBA deserves to get all the recognition that it's receiving right now. It is bigger than Caitlin Clark, but you have to acknowledge where the push came from. I mean, I don't think she wants to be the face of the league, but everybody else wants her to be.
Right.
What's she supposed to do?
Coach, I got 2 last questions for you, and they're non Caitlin Clark related. One of them is the Celtics are up for sale.
I cannot afford it.
Can we go in together? You can bring me with you to the front office. $5 billion. Can we find some people to go in on?
Hey, if Larry Bird was still playing, I would take out every loan in the world to buy that team. But it's pretty strategic, isn't it? How they just won, an NBA championship, and oh, by the way, we're for sale. As the value of the Celtics is at an all-time high right now. So. And good for them. They were able to keep all their key pieces intact. Looks like the Knicks got a little bit better, and it looks like the Sixers got a little bit better. But I think everything runs through Boston right now.
No, that's for sure, Coach. I wish we had more time, but the only other thing I was going to ask you, men's college basketball, quick one. I'm a Zags fan. Mark Few's got a good team coming back. Any chance Mark Few got a shot to cut the nets down?
Man, you and I talk about this every year.
I know. I just like hearing you say it sometimes. And you're usually a Mark Few fan.
It seems like Sweet 16 or Elite 8. But I'll tell you what, they don't get the respect that they deserve, and neither does Mark Few. Everybody makes fun of their league, but look at their non-conference schedule, which is as good as any in the country every year, and look at what they do in the NCAA tournament. By the way, did you watch the NBA playoffs this year? You see how good Nemhard is?
I sure did.
But I'll answer your question. I think they're going to be really good. They had a guy that got hurt before the season started. The kid that transferred in from Eastern Washington. He was the player of the year in the Big Sky.
Steel Venters.
Yes, and they got the big fella back. I'm going to say at least Sweet 16.
All right. Well, you know we'll be talking a lot of college hoops, so.
And you also know I don't know what I'm talking about, so I think Sweet 16 is safe.
Well, Coach, listen, I appreciate you as always. We'll keep in touch.
Sounds good. You guys have a great 4th.
We will. You too, Coach. Be safe.
Take care.
Take it
Appreciate you having
easy.
me.
Oh, he's fun.
I got to be honest with you. That's the first time I've ever heard him on one of your talk shows. I must not have listened when he was on before, but I really liked him. I thought he was a really good speaker, and he brought a lot to the table. I mean, he had a lot of different examples, and you could tell that he's a knowledgeable guy.
He's been on with us for about 8 years. Normally during college basketball season, we bring him on and talk some hoops. And I ran into Coach. He's coaching his son's AU basketball team, so I ran into him at one of the tournaments his team was in. We didn't play him, but that's when my 6th grade team was up in the 7th and 8th grade division. But he's always been great. So I think we got Coach Emily on. I think she's waiting to come on. Let's bring Emily on. There she is.
Hi.
What's up, Coach?
How are you?
I'm doing great. You sick of me reaching out to you?
No, never.
I got my sister on. My sister, we do this fun podcast called The Glory Days because her and I always go down memory lane. And my sister played field hockey at Central Michigan, and she's the winningest coach in the family. She's coached high school field hockey at Camden for how many years now? 20.
This will be 24 years.
Okay.
Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah,
Exactly.
and I got to tell you, Emily, I was saying to Rock when we were just talking before we went live, I was saying now I'm going to go back a little ways, when you were in high school, and I always made sure and told Miss Price, Wanda Price, she's our athletic secretary, I'd always say, you got to put me on the Notre Dame games when Notre Dame comes to Camden. Not that I wanted to necessarily watch the game because I knew it would be a little scary, but I absolutely loved watching you play just because you were so talented. But the biggest thing that I took away from you is you were humble. And as a coach, I really appreciate that. And I mean, you were a great team player. You just had every aspect. Yes, you were this phenomenal basketball player, but you brought in so much more than just the basketball game itself.
Well, thank you. That's a testament to my parents. So they taught me well, and yeah, you always have to be humble.
Yep. See, Rock, she just said kind of what we were talking about our first podcast, just about the importance of how parents, their roles in their kids' lives of athletics. And you just hit the nail on your head. You're who you are because of how your parents raised you. And I couldn't agree with that more. And I think Rock and I could say the same thing about our parents.
Yeah, I think, you guys know my dad, legendary Coach Durr, the real Coach Durr. I'm just the secondary one. Yeah, just growing up in a family, youngest of 5, getting beat up by my brothers in the driveway, it humbles you a lot. And yeah, it's just a testament to them and how they raised us and how successful we are now. So it's just a testament to them, not me.
So, Coach, we've spent, I was just talking to Coach Will Brown, who was the men's coach at Albany for about 20-something years. And then this past year, he was the head coach at St. Rose for the women's, who they went to the NCAA tournament, but their school shut down at the end of the year. So we were talking with him a little bit about, the women's game versus the men's game and how big Caitlin Clark is right now and the whole, phenomenon that she is. But I want to get from your perspective, because you played at a high level, at Iowa State too. How much has it changed since you played?
Oh, where do I begin? So I remember I was in college and I played at Iowa State. So Cyclones and Hawkeyes have
Yep.
history. And even when I was in college, we would actually go to Caitlin Clark's high school games, like as a team, and like go and watch her game because we knew what a high level athlete she was and basketball player she was. But with NIL and I mean, you're talking craziness. I always tell our players now I grew up in the wrong era. I wish I was, 8 years older or 8 years younger, and then I could have made a little money. But yeah, the landscape of college athletics has really changed.
And we were talking too, like, I feel like, I mean, obviously she's been the star of the college basketball world and all eyes are on her. But I was talking to Coach Brown about the class that she came into the WNBA with. The Cameron Branks, herself, Ardoza, Elia Edwards, one of my favorite players. I'm a big Paige Beckers fan. I love Paige. Juju, I mean, the WNBA is going to be in good hands for a long time. But do you think the class that she came in with also was that hot class and, all eyes were on Angel Reese too. I know Caitlin Clark brought it all to the table for college basketball, but does it help with the class she came in with?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Caitlin Clark is such a big name. I coached against her this year at Carver Hawkeye Arena.
Did.
And I've never seen an environment in my life at a college women's basketball game than being at that arena, seeing she has her own personal security, seeing the fans line up. Like, it was absolute craziness. And I think it's so good for our game. And I think she elevates the other players around her and in the whole college landscape as a whole. But yeah, Caitlin Clark is she's special. And you can see it the way she conducts herself, the way she interviews herself, the way she goes about things, I think is very special. And I think it just makes other players and even younger kids in high school and middle school want to be like her. And she has the work ethic to get there. So I think it's a great time to be in women's college basketball. I think it's a hot topic, and that's a testament to Caitlin.
Yeah, I think I was reading a stat when we came on the air that I think the women's national title game got almost 19 million viewers. And I think the men's
more
got
than the men's, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the men's got 10 or 12 million viewers. And I mean, again, South Carolina, as you know, I mean, really good. Dawn Staley's done a really good job at South Carolina. And I think people forgot about how good of a coach and how good of a team she had because of Caitlin Clark. And I was like, I thought South Carolina was going to beat them the entire time. I didn't think Iowa had any chance. But anyways, but the whole media thing right now with women's sports in general, I feel like women's soccer, I feel like women's gymnastics, I think it's always like a key name that you'll follow. I think for all those sports. Do you think women's sports in general, though, has gotten much bigger over the years?
Yeah, I think, I still remember being younger and watching our women's soccer team in like the Olympics and the
Yep.
World Cup and how amazing they were and kind of our whole nation followed them. But I think just having a name like Caitlin Clark and the way she plays and how she scores and how she affects the game in general, she's really like a player we've never seen before. And I think basketball has a landscape and a foundation where she could build on faster and stronger. And I'm just happy that everybody's like catching on now. I mean, even as a kid with the Olympics, I still remember sitting in my kitchen at like a small TV watching like Nastia Lukin in the gymnastics. Like, it was absolutely amazing. And for the world to now catch on and kind of ride that wave has been amazing to watch.
So I don't want to bring back memories for you. But I think it was 101-85, and I think she had 24, 15, and 10 against you guys.
We did scout versus her, I promise. The year before, we did beat them, though,
Right.
at our place. So we have a badge of honor, kind of. But yeah, she just, the way the ball zips around the court with her vision is something I haven't seen before. And her accuracy with passes, the way she goes and gets rebounds. And then, of course, logo threes. I mean, it's unbelievable to watch. Thank you for reminding me of that. That'll help with the scout this year.
So here's something. I always say this. So like my sister and I always go back, and a lot of people always ask us, you know, are the RFA teams from years ago, like they try to compare errors and try to compare athletes. I'm old school to say I think the athletes when we were in school were a little bit better than what they are today, but we can debate that. But for you, when you played to see the women's game, when you played the athleticism, when you played to see the athleticism now of some of the girls playing, is it better now or is it the same? Just there's more talent.
I think it's pretty similar. I think you have different. I mean, we used to have Power 5 kind of back then, and now everybody's kind of switching and moving. You know, if you look at the Big Ten versus the SEC, you're going to find different styles of play.
Mm-hmm.
Like we feed our post players. We come off a ball screen. We run sets. Like SEC, they're more athletic, right? They play quicker. So I think the athletes have always been there. I think, you know, with the moving of the conferences, it's kind of changed the dynamic in a sense. But yeah, I mean, I think the athletes have always been the same. You talk about, you know, a Diana Taurasi, a Candace Parker. I mean, she was the athlete growing up. She was who I looked up to. And back then, I mean, she had a wingspan that was like Brianna Stewart's, you know? So I think the athletes have always been there. Maybe the skill level and the level of competition around them has elevated their game, I think, a little more. Because everybody's kind of getting even to everybody. It's not just, oh, that one star. We have, 4 or 5.
Do you think that the way she's getting the referee and the officiating has been how they've treated her? I mean, I know some people are going to say it's just tough love in the WNBA compared to college. Coach Brown said, and I agree with him. She got a lot of calls in college, right? A lot of calls went her way.
I've been on the other end.
I know. Do you think the WNBA, though, do you think they're calling things a little bit different for her now in the WNBA than versus college?
Yeah, I do think, you know, she got probably more calls in college than WNBA, but I think the level of refereeing has stayed the same. I think people are now realizing because of Caitlin Clark how physical of a game the WNBA has always been. I mean, there's always words spoken. There's always some tussle. But when she's in the mix, I think, it's going to hit, you know, media headlines. But they've always been physical. They've always been tough. And, she's a rookie. I think that, you know, she's learning she has to earn her stripes in this new league where, you know, we've had great players like a Sue Bird, a Diana Taurasi, a Candace Parker, where they've dealt with that as well. I just think Caitlin Clark is on a bigger stage now. And, she's not getting the calls she probably was in college.
You mentioned the Candace Parkers and the Taraji's. Back when you played, who were some of the ones you looked up to? Who were your favorites?
Candace Parker always was my favorite. I remember sitting in front of our small TV in the living room and just watching her at Tennessee. And Pat Summitt was somebody I really looked up to. And the way Candace played was like nothing I've ever seen before. I watched Becky Hammon in the WNBA. I watched Courtney Vandersloot at Gonzaga when she played. And, those have been the 3 that I really, really looked up to.
So let's talk for a minute about your guys' past season. You guys played some good basketball down the stretch this year.
Yeah, you know, we were kind of unfortunate. We had some injuries, some illnesses, and just kind of never got in a flow of things. And then we really hit our stride and won the WBIT. And we are and I won't say this, we are very excited for this upcoming season.
So now, I know this year, was this year your first official year as an assistant? I know you did the recruiting.
Yep. So I was recruiting ops my first year and then assistant coach this past. And then now I'm second year. I'm a vet now. Yeah,
you're old school now, man.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to pick a bone with you though. So I think I had your cousins. I had the Trinkus girls. I had them on my Mohawk Valley show. And I was joking with Coach. I said, next year, do you have any spots open on the coaching staff? Because I was looking up and down the roster, and he's got a lot of those girls back. But How special was it for you to know your alma mater state championship? The Trinkus girls were fantastic. Ella, I think, was player of the year. But how nice was it for you to see that?
There was definitely some tears on my end. It was just like a full circle moment for our whole family. You know, when I won in 2014, my grandma was still alive, who was like the matriarch, and they were little, and we all have pictures of them, you know, at the Final Four. And then they recreated the picture with the, you know, the cousins we took a picture with, and it's so special. I was so proud. I was watching on the laptop from here, screaming at the laptop, I should say. I will give credit to parents out there who watch their kids, because that's how I felt. And I was literally so nervous. I wanted to throw up. But just super proud of them, you know, 10 years from when I won. Again, and just kind of a full circle moment, not just for them, but I think for our whole family. And just truly special. Ella's a great athlete, but she couldn't do it without Maggie and Aaron. And just to have, you know, 3 sisters in the starting 5, and they all play an important role. That's a testament to my Aunt Beth. She's great.
Did you get a chance to talk to them before the game? Give them any words of encouragement?
So it's hard with recruiting rules as a coach.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So I had to talk to my Aunt Beth. I couldn't really talk to them. It was so weird with the recruiting rules. But yeah, I made sure they knew that I was watching and that I was just so proud of them. You know, I remember beating them up in the driveway when they were like 4, and I think I was like 16. I was like, you're old enough to deal with this.
They were really good. I talked to them on here, and they were really good. You could tell they come from a good family, and Coach Snyder was great to jump on with me as well. And the whole community, even this way, I mean, the whole Mohawk Valley was supporting. It was great. What a great run. They're going to be good again next year.
Yeah, I think Maggie and Aaron don't get as much, you know, publicity as Ella, because Ella's a great player, but I think they're really going to miss Maggie's leadership. But I think Aaron and Ella will really step into that role. And yeah, I'll be watching from afar for sure.
So you guys are going to have next year for you for college. You guys got a lot of girls coming back.
Yeah, which is very ironic in this landscape. There's a lot of players that, you know, jump ship because of the money, the NIL. And I think that's just a testament to Coach Green and the culture she builds here. Like when you have, you know, 4 of your 5 starters stay and the 5th one graduated, and they could go anywhere and make X amount of money, but they choose to stay here. I think that's really special. And we really feel it this summer. I mean, there's just a different vibe with our team, and a competitiveness and a hungriness. Like for those 4, it's their last year, and they're really setting the tone. As a coach, you can't ask for anything better.
Yeah, I always say it's nice to be able to kind of follow a coach that has been a winner everywhere she's been, and Coach Green's been a winner everywhere she's been. And it's fantastic for you. But see, I don't know her, but it seems like from what you're saying and what I read and everything, you know, kids want to play for her.
There's not enough words in the dictionary to like really describe her. She's just a great person. And I think recruits feel that, our players feel that, and she really cares about them as people. And I think in this landscape of money-driven, kind of pay-for-play, that kind of gets lost with a lot of the big programs and the Power 5 programs. So it's just a testament to who she is and how she makes everybody around her feel. And she's also a really damn good coach. So that always helps as well.
Yes, she is. That's for sure. She beat my Fordham Lady Rams numerous times. So
You did. They were tough, though. Those were the toughest games, they would say, playing at Fordham.
in the small Rose Hill gym.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the oldest gyms in the country.
I know. And who was the coach there for a long time?
Oh, dear. I knew
He's
you
at
would probably
Fairleigh
say that.
Dickinson now. But she was a great coach.
Yes, that's right. That is where she went.
Yeah. That was always a battle. Shauna never wanted to play there. That's for sure.
The Bronx tough, man. Hey, what's a guy got to do to get is there any lady fighting Illini gear?
I'm sure I can hook you up. Don't
All
worry.
right.
Don't worry.
Well, listen,
Send me your size.
I appreciate you coming
your
on as
sister,
always.
too.
Oh, thank you.
I love talking to you. You know that. I love following you, and you're always gracious to come on with me anytime I reach out. So I know I'll reach out to you again soon. But as I always say, we are extremely proud of you. So keep up the good work.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the support. And you do great things for the Utica area, Utica Rome area.
Utica Rome area, yes.
Yeah,
Hey, are you going to be this way at all? Are you coming home at all this summer?
Yeah, so we actually go on a foreign trip August 2nd to the 12th, but I'll be home the 13th to the 18th ish. So
okay.
Yeah, I'll definitely
shoot me a message.
Yeah, well.
All right. Well, listen, we appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll see you in August.
All right, of course, sounds good.
Right. Thanks, Coach.
All right, of course. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
She's awesome. She's one of my favorite ones to come on. I mean, again, you know, it's somebody who, even as a young coach that she is, and she'll be a head coach someday.
Oh, absolutely.
Just from the coaching tree with her dad, who's a legendary coach in this area. But you just by talking with her, I've talked with her numerous times. You could tell just the first class that she is.
Yeah. And again, I think a good role model for any athlete, male, female, you know, it doesn't matter. She's definitely, like I said, I always loved watching her play. I think the thing that stood out to me, like I said, she was a phenomenal player, but I just loved her humbleness. Like she wasn't arrogant. She was always willing, you know, to help her teammates out, a good attitude. And those are the type of players that, you know, you've coached, that you like to have on your team, is definitely somebody like her. And it's cool now that she was a great high school player. You know, she went on to play successful Division I college, and now here she is, an assistant coach on the other side of the fence, you know, in a huge role. So that's
she was the head women's coach at MVCC.
Yep.
And
that's right.
She left to go to Dayton with Coach Green, who we were talking about. That's why I mentioned Fordham, because they played Fordham in the A-10. And then she went to Illinois with Coach Green, who took her with her.
Yep.
And this is the second year now she's been an actual assistant coach, and I think she's still the director of recruiting. But I mean, Shannon, I think the moral of tonight is the impact that, I know we talked a lot about Caitlin Clark, but just the impact that she's had on the women's game, women's sports in general, the amount of revenue that she's brought in. And you're looking at now arenas that are changing, you know, in all the sports for females. They're on TV more. You're seeing more women's figures, even in the sporting world, as far as, you know, you look at ESPN, you look at the field reporters. I mean, there's more and more women in sports than I think we've ever had. And I think it's only going to get bigger.
I definitely think it's going to get bigger. And like, I've been watching a lot of the Olympic trials and stuff. And I got to say, gymnastics has always been my most favorite to watch. And you look at Simone Biles. I mean, here she is. She's not a young spring chicken anymore.
Nope.
She's what, 27, 28? I don't know, her later 20s. And I mean, she rocked it. Her floor routine, she blew it out of the water. And I think having athletes like her, like Caitlin Clark's, I think our young kids need to see that. They need to have those, you know, role models. And I was at the mall this weekend with Michaela shopping for her college stuff. And it was funny. I know Coach Brown was just talking about this, but I was walking by one of the sports stores, and in the window, you always see male, you know, athletes, the big names. But for the first time ever, I saw several Caitlin Clark shirts. And I thought that was so cool because, you know, here young athletes, female athletes can go in and get a Caitlin Clark, you know, t-shirt and wear it and rock it and, you know, have her as a role model.
Yeah, I think it's like what I told Coach Brown is, you know, again, I was a huge Tim Tebow guy. It's somebody that did it the right way and had a great college career. They're paying out in the NFL. But I always feel like, that jealousy where people are just going to knock down Caitlin Clark. And like Coach Brown said, if you listen to her press conferences, she talks professional,
Yeah.
never points fingers. Yeah, I mean, she complains every now and then, puts her arms up, but, she's a competitor. But she has thrown everything that's been thrown at her so far this year. And people have to remember, after the national championship game was the WNBA draft, she was playing games, I think, like 2 to 3 weeks later.
Yep.
So she hasn't had any time to adapt to
Right.
going from college to playing with professionals. They're grown women
Yeah.
in the WNBA. So I think next year she's going to be even better. But how people can sit back and actually knock her, she can't help that she's getting all these endorsements and all these sponsors. And,
Yeah.
again, they're going from playing in front of 7,000 people to $20,000-$30,000 arenas.
Yeah. It's definitely
So,
growing
crazy.
because of her. She definitely is bringing different places. And like I said, when I was researching her, I knew that she was endorsed by Nike. That I knew. But when I saw Gatorade, I even learned State Farm.
Yep.
She's endorsed
Yep.
by.
Yep.
I was blown out of the water. I didn't realize that those are just a few. As she goes on, so many more are gonna reach out to her and want to endorse her.
Yeah. I mean, she's huge.
Yeah.
She's definitely changed the landscape. So
Yep. So I gotta just say one thing. I know our time is almost up, but this is a whole nother topic for another day. I just want to throw this at you since we've been talking, about the whole women in sports aspect of things. But one of the discussions that is coming down the line, and this will throw a major curveball into women's sports for high school level, is males being allowed to play on female sport teams. So, for an example, let's just use Camden. So, field hockey, we don't have a male field hockey team. So, therefore, males will be able to play on a female field hockey team. That is coming down the line. That's been a topic of discussion in our section. And I'm here to tell you, wow. I mean, I could remember in high school. I don't know if you remember this, Rock, but I do vaguely or not vaguely, but I remember because I was a forward and I played against them. But Holland Patton had a goalie, Greg Crum, and it definitely was difficult having to play against the male. So that might have to be another topic
wow.
of discussion. But it's definitely going to throw a curveball. I know. I was just saying to somebody today, me personally, it wouldn't have bothered me. I would have loved the challenge to play against guys, bring it. But, you take your average athlete to maybe going below that average line,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to steer people away because it's going to scare them. And that's not a good thing for, female sports.
So you think that's definitely coming?
It's coming. I'm telling you, it's coming. And I got to tell you the other flip side of that. I know some really good, strong female athletes that played football and were very, very good. But I feel like that's a little bit different. Having males play female sports, there's so much more. You take the difference in strength. I mean, I'd like to say that I'm super strong, but you put me in comparison, to a male, I'm not going to win that battle. So that's definitely coming down the road, and it's heavily being talked about.
Well, that's a future show. We'll have to have some discussions on and bring on some coaches from some different.
I think that would be a good one. I mean, it might even go into the works possibly in the winter months of sport. So
yeah, no, that's a good one. We'll definitely have to think about it. If
Yep.
it hits, we'll definitely do a show on it. Well, I want to make sure I thank Coach Brown and Coach Emily Durr for jumping on tonight with us. I appreciated talking to both of them. We'll have to see, Shane, when we're going to do the next one, see what our topic will be. But we'll definitely jump back on and do episode number 3 here, probably over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I definitely think, because I know the last podcast we did, Rock, we had a lot of viewers. that maybe tuned in after the fact. And again, I just want to throw out there, I think I said this the last time, if there's two things, if there's anything that, people want to see you and I talk about, a big topic of discussion, let, Rock or I know, definitely reach out to us. And also, I really I don't know about you, but I get a little distracted when people comment. I love having the audience kind of chime into the discussion that we're having or that you're having with other guests. I think it
Yep.
kind of really makes things interesting. So getting people to really, get engaged in what we're talking about, because it's nice to hear all aspects, not just your point of view, my point of view, just different people's opinions on things. We can all, agree to disagree, and that's kind of the world we live in. But I think it would be cool to see different what people want, what people
Yep.
want to hear. And because I do think we bring a lot to the table. Both of us have been around and back and have a lot of different experiences with things.
Yep, no, I agree. So we'll have to see. We'll plan one out over the next couple of weeks, see what night works best, and see what the hot topic we can come up with. And, if we got to have some guests on, the more the better. The other thing we could do, actually, and I keep forgetting to do this, but during our show, any podcast that I do, I can actually put a link in the comment box. So if somebody has a question and wanted to jump on the show with us,
Oh yeah.
I can bring them on. So I've done it before. It's another fun
Yep.
way to kind of interact with our guests. But we'll think of the next topic and we'll get it out there, and we'll see if we can make something happen. So we'll
That
get
sounds
something out
good.
soon.
Yep. Sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, Shane, I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, Rock. Take it easy. Bye,
All
everyone.
right. We'll talk to you. So another episode of the Glory Days podcast. I want to thank my sister for jumping on a different show tonight, right? It had some guests on. Coach Brown's been a staple for me over the last 8 years and brings a ton of experience in coaching. Emily Durr is another one of our favorite guests that we've had on the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch. I've had her on the Rock Pile podcast. You name it, I've had her on over the years. So I want to make sure that I thank her as well. So on behalf of my sister and I tonight here on the Glory Days podcast, sponsored by the Rock Pile, thanks for tuning in.